What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Triple Play Analytics. My name is Sasank, and today we're going to be talking some basketball. But before we do that, let's go right into our first segment of our shout-outs of the week. So, our first shout-out goes to Shaun White, who won gold in snowboarding halfpipe. That's his third gold in the event, and he had a whopping 97.75 score on his final run to come back and win it. So congratulations to Shaun. This is his third once again. This is after he failed the medal in Sochi 4 years ago. So this is kind of his comeback winner Olympics, and he did. He won it. So congratulations to him. Our second one is Chloe Kim. She's a 17-year-old from California. She won. Also, in women's snowboarding halfpipe, she won gold. So another 17-year-old American winning another snowboarding event. She's now with Red Gerard. So once again, shout out to him like last week. But more importantly, shout out to Chloe Kim because it's absolutely amazing. She just she absolutely blew away the competition with her first and second run. So congrats to her. And finally, the final shout out goes to Matthew Murray, the Penguins goaltender. So he's currently on a 6-0-1 streak over his past 7 games. It's a 7-game point streak. This is actually really important for him, not only just for the Penguins, but for him because he did this during the father's trip. And if you've done any reading in the NHL or heard anything about Matt Murray, his father had recently passed away. He took a leave from the team. So doing this on the father's trip right after that, this is an emotional time for him to go 7 straight games, playing absolutely amazing. That's courage. That's absolutely amazing. He has just been a rock solid foundation for the Penguins back end. And, kudos and shout outs to him for, playing through all of this and, being mentally tough. I can only imagine what he's going through right now. So, shout out and condolences to him. And with that being said, that ends our, segment on the shout outs. So today, as I said earlier on, we're looking at the NBA and talking some basketball. And so we're actually going to be talking about this guy right here, LaMarcus Aldridge. So, if you don't know who he is, let me get you caught up to speed on some information about him. He's listed as a center and sometimes as a power forward, more often than not as a PF. Really, he's just a big man in the current NBA. He shoots right. He's 6'11", weighs 260 pounds. So when I say he's a big man, he truly is a big man. He currently plays for the San Antonio Spurs. He's played for them since 2016, or really 2015 when he signed with them. Before that, he played for the Portland Trail Blazers from 2007, really 2006, to 2015. He went to the University of Texas for college, and he was drafted second overall in 2006 by the Chicago Bulls. Now, he never played for the Bulls. He was traded right after he was drafted to the Portland Trail Blazers. He was traded with Demetrius Nichols, the second round pick by the Bulls that season, or that draft really, for Victor Kripa and Tyrus Thomas. So, in my mind, the winner of that trade was Portland. And then he signed with the Spurs in 2015, a 4-year, $84 million deal. Huge deal for him. He got paid. And he recently signed a 2-year extension in October of 2017. So this season. So why is he important to look at? Why is LaMarcus Aldridge the person I've chosen to look at? Well, it's because during the summer, he requested a trade. So if we rewind back to the conference finals last season, LaMarcus Aldridge had to really put the team on his back and carry the San Antonio Spurs because Kawhi Leonard was injured on a dangerous closeout by Zaza Pachulia of the Golden State Warriors. Kawhi Leonard is still injured right now, not because of the ankle injury, but because of a quadricep injury. So LaMarcus Aldridge is now the go-to guy of the Spurs. So when your go-to offensive player asks for a trade away from the league's model of consistency in the San Antonio Spurs, you have a major problem. And Greg Popovich knew that. And so when he sat down with LaMarcus Aldridge, and Aldridge said, "I'd ship me away, get me out of here," Pop said this: "You bring me a talent like Kevin Durant, you know what I'll do? I'll pack your bags, I'll get you a taxi, I'll drive you to the airport, I'll put you on that plane, I'll buckle you up, and make sure you get to that place. But until then, until you get me Kevin Durant-like talent, you're here, we've got you for a few more years, we're going to make things work." And he has. Because originally, LaMarcus Aldridge was put into a playstyle system that did not benefit him. It moved LaMarcus Aldridge around way too much. Aldridge would be out in the point, sometimes, corner three, shooting corner threes, out near the key shooting threes, deep twos, and then occasionally down where he should be, his kitchen or his office, down closer to the net with his back to the net, driving the net or fadeaway shots. And, Pop admitted that I had overcoached LaMarcus Aldridge. I tried to turn him into a player. I tried to coach a 9-year veteran player like a rookie. Now, I will be coaching his defense like he's a rookie because he treats everyone's defense the same. It's terrible. That is his outlook on defense. Everyone's defense is terrible, so let's work on it. Offensively, he tried to remold LaMarcus Aldridge, who made his living in Portland playing down low. So he was wrong there, and his humility really helped him dig himself out of that hole. So let's really look at LaMarcus Aldridge and his growth from last season, because it's very important to look at this growth because he grew a lot confidence-wise. Confidence-wise, last season he had no confidence in his shot. You could tell by the amount he was scoring and the amount he was putting up shots. This season, completely different LaMarcus Aldridge. So before we get right into the graphs and the stats, let me tell you the data I looked at. So first, I did year-to-year analysis, really gross analyses between this current year, the 54 games he's played, last year, 2 years ago, and then his final few seasons with Portland. And then also I looked about two specific date ranges. So the first date range was from January 8th to February 20th of this season, 2018, where he played 15 games. I took that same date range and transposed it to 2017, and that time he played 14 games. So let's get right to it. Let's look at these graphs. So in this first graph here, you see LaMarcus Aldridge shooting attempts for 2018. Now, this is actually kind of important to look at because LaMarcus Aldridge has had a changing scoring trend. So, right now in this graph, you see he has a decreasing scoring trend. I tell you, that's misleading. That's misleading because let's look at his scoring in general. In this 15-game span, the Spurs went 7-8. Compared to 2017, that 14-game span, they went 10-4. But here's the thing. This season, during those 15 games, LaMarcus Aldridge averaged 22.3 points per game. With this decreasing scoring trend about how many field goals he puts up, that's kind of it's interesting to see that decreasing trend. It just says he was becoming more efficient with his shots. He was getting more shots to drop. But if you look at 2017, he scored on average 16.6 points per game in that 10-4 run. But he was at a very, very slight increasing trend. But his shot totals was more, his field goal totals were more staggered. We'll say that. And these scoring attempts really just show one thing. It's that he's taking more. Because the maximum amount of scoring attempts he had in 2017 over that 14 games was 20. Well, let's go back to 2018, and we say he's taking 25 shots per game, averaging around maybe a bit under 20. He's averaging 18, 17.6 to be exact. He's averaging 18. Let's round up, and in 2017. Well, let's look back at that graph again, and we can see he's averaging 14.8, 15. So going from 18 to 15, that's 3 more shots. That's 6 more points. If he hits all of them, that's what we're seeing. He's 3 for 3 because he's a 6-point increase right there. So you're taking 3 more shots, you're getting 3 more buckets, you're adding 6 more points, you're adding maybe late game wins, and plus you're without Kawhi Leonard. So with these scoring attempts, you can see an increase in scoring. Not only that, we actually see, let's also look at, after this, let's look at his shooting percentages. This is something that's really important because right here in this graph, you see for 2018, shooting percentage-wise, you're just looking at field goal percentage and effective field goal percentage. If you do not know what effective field goal percentage is, let me get you caught up to speed. Effective field goal percentage is a stat that data analysts like myself use to really put the proper weighting onto a 3-point shot. The 3-point shot is included in the field goal average, but it's worth more than a 2-point shot. So instead of weighting it 1-to-1 with a 2-point shot, what you do is you add 0.5 times the total 3 points shot, 3 points attempted, in order to add the proper weight. So we see here in 2018, his effective field goal percentage is actually increasing. Slight increase, but his effective, on average, it's at a 53.9. So almost a 54% effective shooting. That puts his field goal percentage at around 53%. 3 points, he either he'll knock one down or he'll miss one. He's in between 0% and 100% in 50%. He doesn't take more than 2. The most he took during that span was 3, and he nailed one of them. But most nights he isn't taking a 3, and if he does, he's taking 1. And it's usually a set play. But that being said, his effective shooting is getting better. So he's finding more shots. He's being more confident in his shot. He's scoring more. He's effectively shooting more. He's effectively had a better shooting percentage. More of his shots are falling. So once again, we see his confidence is increasing. He's got better confidence. But now let's look at 2017. We see a decreasing trend. We see a very big decreasing trend in his effective field goal rating because his average normal field goal percentage was 43%. If we look at his average effective field goal percentage, it's 43.8. So let's round up and say 44%. Well, let's compare the 2 years. 2017, 44%. 2018, 54%. That's a 10% increase. If you're shooting 10 shots per game, that's huge. Because last season, he was averaging 15 shots per game, and he was only effectively nailing 45% of them. So if we do the math there, that's around 6 shots per game. This season, he's averaging 18 shots per game. He's effectively hitting 54 of them. Well, that's 9. So he's making 3 more shots, averaging 3 more shots, having a 10% increase in his shooting. Well, you're going to see more scoring. And, this is all because, one, he's now been put into a situation, an offensive system that really exploits his offensive capabilities of driving the net and shooting closer buckets. And that's going to increase his confidence. You can see it right here. Last year, during this 14 game span, the Spurs were winning. His shooting was getting worse. During this 15 game span, the Spurs have a losing record. They're under 500, but he's shooting better. He's scoring better. You can see he's confident. Even though he isn't winning, he's confident in his shot. And that's what the Spurs need going into the playoffs, because right now they have an injured Rudy Gay and an injured Kawhi Leonard. So a healthy LaMarcus Aldridge, a confident LaMarcus Aldridge, in my mind, is a dangerous LaMarcus Aldridge who's ready to take on any team. But now let's look at effective field goal versus what I'm calling effective field goal plus. So effective field goal plus is really a stat I kind of created in this analysis because I wanted to look at his free throw shooting as well. Because LaMarcus Aldridge has been a good free throw shooter. Last year he averaged 81% from the line. 2 years ago he averaged 86% from the line. Back in Portland, averaged 85% and 82%. This season, over 54 games, he's averaging 84%. So during this 15-game time period, he's averaging 73%, however. Now, I think that actually goes towards the fact that in a few games, he was fouled under 5 times. And by a few, I mean he went to the line under 5 times. He shot less than 5 free throws, excuse me. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of 15 games. So about half of the games, he was at the line 5 or less times. One of those games, he never went to the line, and that was against Houston, where he scored 16 points in 33-ish in almost 34 minutes. So LaMarcus Aldridge is a good free throw shooter when he gets to the line. That being said, if we compare his free throw percentages in general, last season at this time, he was shooting 68% from the line. Now he's shooting 73%. Now, yes, that's 5%, but that's a big 5%, because that's like, if you're shooting 5% more from the line, you're either getting to the line more and hitting more, or just getting there at the same amount and just making 1 or 2 more free throws. That's 1 or 2 more points. That's going to help your team. And with effective field goal plus, this statistic right here takes into account a free throw, because effective field goal does not look at does not weigh a free throw in it. It's just field goals attempted. Well, with EFG plus, what I do is I do field goal plus 0.5 times 3 points made plus 1.5 times free throws. That sum divided by the sum of field goals attempted and free throws attempted. Now that is effective field goal plus. Now, I've already done some self-criticism on this statistic. EFG plus will, in some occasions, overweigh a free throw. That's kind of important because overweighing it can make his shooting seem too good. So, in the future, this statistic can actually be improved by changing the weights on the free throw weight, because this EFG plus it overvalues a free throw. But still, looking at it, in 2018, he has an EFG plus on average of around a 66.46%, so 66.5%. Well, last season, with his relatively poor shooting, we see here he has an effective field goal plus of around, on average, 63%. So we get 66.5 versus 63%. That's not that big of a change. That's just because his free throw shooting was relatively similar. The change we see in this case is actually the difference between his actual field goal percentage, versus both years being compared, because 53% is much better than 43%. That 10% increase, even though there is a 5% increase in free throw shooting, that's going to constitute somewhat of an increase in his effective field goal plus shooting. So, with that being said, the trends, I really found in Aldridge, other than his scoring, with his passing, with his assists, he, had more assists per game. He's having more assists per game this year, barely. He's still averaging, 1.2 assists per game. He's on an increasing trend, a very small one. Block-wise, he's still averaging, a block per game, sometimes a bit more. Sometimes he'll have 2 blocks per game, which would be a very good defensive night for him. He's not a defensive liability, but he's not their defensive go-to guy. Total rebounding wise, he's, totally rebounding pretty well. This season, total rebounds are around 8 rebounds, 8.4. Last season was down to 7.3. Over this 15-game span, it is 8 rebounds per game. Last season, that 14-game span, 7.5. Last season, he was actually going to increase rebounding over those 14 games. This season, over the 15-game span, steady as she goes. So, now with LaMarcus Aldridge, I want to look at something actually more predictive, because we've been looking at these past trends and seeing how he's grown and become more confident. But what I want to do actually is predict if it's going to stay that way. So, over the next 5 games, I want to see if, what he'll average over the next 5 games. So, I use 2 approaches for this. The first one is a moving average approach, where I combine multiple averages, one of them being a moving average, to really look at and see if his averages are really accurate or not. So there are 3 averages I had. I first had a normal average, which is literally just an average of all his previous points from games played over those 15 games played. Then I had a decreasing average. So I started with 15 games played, all 15 of those averages. So when he plays that first game, all that data is averaged. His second game, well, his performance in his very first game of that 15 game period, well, it's less of a factor now, so I decrease it to now 14. And then the third game will have 13. Fourth game, 12. Fifth game, 11. Like that. A decreasing average. As he continues to play, the effect of the psychological, the mental effect of those previous games tends to become less and less, because he's playing more and more. He's forgetting more about them. And then I had a weighted average. A weighted average is just as it should be. The weights, however, came from his most recent game is weighted at 100, and each game before that is weighted 5 less. So it'll be 195 all the way up to 0. And if it's weighted at 0, all previous games that are played before then will be also weighted at 0. So if we want to look at that, it's going to be a bit of a comparison. So we're going to look at here his moving average versus what I call ML prediction. And this ML prediction actually is what's like machine learning. It's a linear regression that builds itself off of the average data and also the current game data over those 15 games. So this trend line I had, it kind of learned off of, first, it built itself from the 15 games. It made a trend line from the 15 games he played. And then I reinforced what that trend line is with the moving average predictions for those 5 games. And then it made that prediction on average. So as we can see here, the moving line average, the average prediction was at 23 points per game for the next 5 games. That's a pretty good prediction. That's right on with his that's a point more than his 15 games, what he's been averaging. And you can see here, in blue it's average points, and that light blue is the moving average trend line for it. Now, In red is what I call ML points, and that is that linear regression with some slight machine learning, and that actually predicts that he's going to score 26 points per game over the next 5 games. So that is actually 4 points more than what he was scoring on average. I think that this right now kind of overvalues, because it doesn't have to do it doesn't take into account anything about his opponent, who he's put up against, the situations he's put out. It's just pure scoring data. So with that, I'd like to kind of conclude a few things now. So first things first, LaMarcus Aldridge is back. The all-star LaMarcus Aldridge that the NBA knew when he played in Portland, he's back. He's back, he's confident, and he's going out there because he wants to win that championship trophy. 2, with his increasing confidence, he's taking pressure off of the young Spurs. DeJounte Murray, Bryn Forbes, Joffrey Laverne. These guys, they're getting more and more minutes because a lot of the older players with Pau Gasol, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili, they need rest. So these younger guys are playing, and they have LaMarcus Aldridge out there, and Aldridge is taking the point scoring for them. He's taking the offense for them. He's saying, "Give me the ball. I will score for you guys. I just need you guys to help me," and it's helping them grow. DeJounte Murray's grown a lot this season. Davis Bertans has grown a lot this season, thanks to LaMarcus Aldridge taking that offensive pressure off of them when they're all on the court together. Now, let's look at kind of the stats side of things. The effective field goal plus, effective shooting plus statistic, it slightly overweighs free throws. And with that, we can see that LaMarcus Aldridge's EFG plus is slightly inflated. It should be very close. His EFG plus should be very close to his EFG, but the EFG plus is slightly greater than it, and that can just be because we're overweighing the field goal, not the field goal, the free throw. And then finally, for the predictions in the next 5 games, the moving average builds off of itself. It continues to average itself and grow from that. That allows for a very good short-term prediction, aka 2, 3, and sometimes 4 or 5 games. Now, the ML, the machine learning one, builds off of the moving average for short-term, and it's also linear. So the linearity of it is actually slightly bad because it can weigh anomaly games where either he's held to 6 points per game or he puts up 40 points per game. In those situations, it can weigh those a bit too heavily. And we can see that if you do a R-squared analysis of it, you'll see that the R-squared is not going to be up near 95, 96, 97, 99%. It's going to be closer to 90%. It's going to be less accurate because linear regressions are swayed heavily by anomalies and extraneous data that are not close enough to the average. So in the future, instead of using a linear regression, maybe a moving average that builds off of another moving average, maybe could be effective. Also, it could be a piecewise polynomial function could also help when determining the initial regression for it. If a polynomial regression works and then built off with a moving average, we could see better predictions and actually could see more game-by-game changes instead of just looking at a average of 5 games. We could see game-by-game saying, over the first game he'll score probably this much, but on the third game we'll see a decrease or increase just based off of the polynomial regression. So with that, I'd like to thank you for watching Triple Play Analytics, and just a quick announcement. There might not be an episode next week due to the fact that I'll be having a shoulder surgery. So, you won't see me next week, but maybe in a week and a half or 2, you'll see me back here giving you another stat and fact-driven analysis. So, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you guys have a good day. Thanks.